lifted the shield and landed on Endor.
This is where the fun begins.
A long time ago, in a galaxy far, far away.
This is Rebel Force Radio.
Your source for the Force.
Star Wars news and commentary.
With Jason Swank and Jimmy Mack.
I've seen Star Wars 500 times. Star Wars #1.
This station is now the ultimate power in the universe. I suggest we use it.
Now it's time for Rebel Force Radio.
We would be honored if you would join us.
I haven't even seen this new Ahsoka TV spot. If it's the one that they played at the Hall of Fame game on the Thursday night football game, I missed it. My wife and my son were watching it at the Cleveland Browns against the New York Jets, and that was a big deal. So the game's happening in Canton, and of course it's the Cleveland Browns, and they go, "Oh, there's Ahsoka on. Ahsoka's on." By the time I got into the room, it was over. But we're going to watch it tonight because we got 2 weeks to go. We're counting it all down here till Ahsoka premieres on Disney Plus, August 23rd. And apparently, I'm told there's new footage in the TV spot, so we'll take a look at that. Of course, we'll do our play-by-play, our scene-by-scene, our shot-by-shot breakdown of that also. And this is rare these days in the age of the actors' strike and the writers' strike, but there are some new comments from Ahsoka star Rosario Dawson, courtesy of Entertainment Weekly. We'll have a breakdown of those clips. And we thought we would take a timeout because, this strike will be over eventually, and then all the stars will be out. We'll be back to normal. But let's take the opportunity to go back and look at some great Star Wars moments in pop culture. So we're going to have a big helping of Star Wars in pop culture. And you know who prepares that meal? That's, of course, my good friend and yours from Chicago, Jimmy Mack.
Hey, Jason. Hey, Star Wars fans. Yes, helping indeed. It's probably the most massive Star Wars and pop culture segment we've ever had. You guys have been filling up the RFR mailbag with all of these great suggestions about Star Wars references happening in TV and film. I mean, covering the gamut, going back, I think, we have something at least from the 90s here and
wow,
leading all the way up to contemporary times here.
In the 90s, it was still somewhat, I wouldn't say rare, but it was a lot rarer than it is now to see a Star Wars reference.
Oh, for sure.
It was very special in the 90s.
The Simpsons were kind of laying down some groundwork in the early 90s. And then when Kevin Smith hit Star Wars reference gold in Clerks with his conversation between Dante and Randall about the contractors who worked on the Death Star 2. That really kind of hit a nerve, and Star Wars pop culture references, just the floodgates open.
Well, because it became a talking point. People left that movie, and that conversation was a huge moment. People were so hungry. It's hard for people these days to remember or to understand or relate because Star Wars, you got it on tap. You just walk into your kitchen, turn on the faucet, and Star Wars pours out. Right. That's not how it was back then. It was these three special moments in time, these three special films. There was never really anything like it afterwards. There was never anything like it before. And all we knew was George was done. It was just like, wow, boy, I'm glad I lived through that. That'll never happen again.
Right. Well, it did seem that way, at least post Return of the Jedi until the early 90s when Star Wars, with the publication of Timothy Zahn's Heir to the Empire, that really opened the door for fresh Star Wars content to be revealed. And I was there for all of it. Throwing down most of my paycheck at times.
And think about that. Here's the great thing. 30 years later, here we are 2 weeks away from the Ahsoka. We've got Thrawn coming in, making his live action debut. It's really amazing. I was thinking about this because I saw some people complaining. Can you imagine this, Jim? People complaining online.
No.
Yeah, I saw it.
Not about Star Wars?
Oh, about Star Wars, about action figures and toys and all this stuff. Here's what's interesting. Yeah.
No.
They're people. They're complaining about the fact that they're re-releasing some action figures. And I got caught up into it too. I'm like, oh man, I want something new. Why are you re-releasing this stuff? Until I realized that it's been more than 10 years since these figures were out. And as you were saying, I lived through it all. For those of us that have lived through it all, that 10 years ago seems like yesterday. But if you're 15, 20 years old and you just started collecting, maybe you just got your first real job out of school or something like that, and you're starting to collect, you need those re-releases.
Right. You're
not going to go on eBay and necessarily pay those exorbitant aftermarket prices. So that's it's called perspective, right? You got to have a little bit of perspective.
It's all about perspective.
You can't expect everything new coming out to match your collection that you've been curating for 45 years.
When the original Kenner Star Wars action figures were released in the 70s and 80s, every time a new film came out, the characters from previous films would be re-released on cards featuring the logo for the new film. So you could purchase a Hammerhead action figure with a Return of the Jedi logo on it, even though Hammerhead is nowhere to be found in Return of the Jedi. That's because they kept the machine going.
How
because
brilliant
they understood that newer fans were entering into the flow with each film release.
Right.
So everyone got a shot.
And if you were a kid that loved Darth Vader, there was always a Darth Vader on the pegs. There was always a Han Solo on the pegs, a Chewbacca, a 3PO. That was so brilliant that they were able to do that. And nowadays, fans would be complaining, oh, look at them, they just repackaged the same old Darth Vader figure and put a Return of the Jedi logo on it.
Well, I mean, also, you're looking back at a more innocent time when it was children primarily purchasing this stuff.
Yeah, that's true. The kids didn't complain.
There wasn't a field of Star Wars collecting. It wasn't a field. The first time I heard anybody call it a field, the field of Star Wars collecting, I was like, ooh, field. It was Steve Sansweet. And he said that. I was like, wow, that really helps legitimize things as I'm an adult guy buying action figures.
You've always wanted to be in a field.
I'm not playing with toys anymore. I am participating in the field of Star Wars collecting.
Does that mean when I'm out at Target, I'm in the field?
Yeah. Your boots on the ground, pal.
Oh, man. Oh, that's
Unfortunately,
fantastic.
you rarely find anything at Target or any of those big box stores anymore.
That's
Back
true.
in the day, that was the hunting grounds. And you would go on the hunt. And you would have a circle of these stores you would go into.
Yeah.
You get your exercise in for the day.
You know, I think about those days. I did this a lot when I was in college in the summers, and I would be home and I'd have my summer job, and I'd have it wasn't really full time, and I could get up early in the morning, and I would hit Walmart first, and then I would hit Target, and then Toys R Us, and then KB Toys in the mall.
Oh my God!
I go to all four of them in the mall, and now there's no KB, there's no Toys R Us.
Mm-hmm. You
got Walmart, and God bless him, but all I see are nothing but General Lando Black Series, and maybe there's a lot of Lando swinging on the pegs these days at least at my local stores.
There's always some sort of character that seems to have been maybe overproduced or undersold, but and that goes back all the way even to the old Kenner days of the 70s.
Do you remember any peg warmers back in the day?
Any peg warmers back in the day? For some reason, I see Walrus Man in my
really?
fuzzy memories. It's like, oh no, not Walrus Man again. God, how many Walrus men am I going to run into?
Back then for me, it wasn't so much peg warmers. There would be figures, because I wanted to have them all, but they weren't as exciting. I remember things like Hoth Rebel Trooper. I remember, two of the most boring figures for me were the Bespin guards. But I wanted them, but I didn't want them because there were characters I wanted more, And when I finally got the Bespin guards, I got the guy with the mustache and I got the black guy. I was like, okay, all right, I got him. But I mean, they didn't see much action. They didn't see much.
Well, I'm sorry to hear that. I figured with the porn stashes, they would have gotten a lot of action. But maybe I played with my toys differently than you did.
Well, there was only one female figure, But,
well, you get experience.
But anyway, it's fun to kind of go back down memory lane. We got to see if you have any memories of back in the day, the vintage days from 78 to 85, and remember any peg warmers, send us an email, show@rebelforceradio.com, or better yet, leave us a voicemail. Speaking of voicemails, let's go. Let's listen to some voicemails. What do you think?
Let's do it.
You must contact me.
Play back the entire message.
What message?
Message, Arthur, the message.
The Emperor commands you to make contact with him. It's a trick. Send no reply.
Hey, Jimmy and Jason. EJ from Florida here. The live-action Ahsoka show is right around the corner, and I believe all of us are very excited and optimistic about what lies ahead. In preparation, I'm reviewing all the must-watch shows. I think most of us might be doing that. And essentially what I'm doing is a rewatch of a combination of key episodes of Tales of the Jedi, The Clone Wars, and Star Wars Rebels. And I do it in chronological order. And this rewatch made me realize that even when concentrating on the essential key episodes, my response to them varies from, this is insufferable, Sky Guy, Snips, young, whiny Ezra, Hondo, and the Bendu come to mind, to this is some of the best Star Wars ever produced. Now, recognizing that all of this is somewhat subjective and based on personal taste, what are 2 or 3 things that you most look forward to seeing in the Ahsoka live action show? And on the flip side, what do you fear the most? Thanks again for putting up great shows every week. Looking forward to your responses.
Well, I have a timely answer for what I fear the most, if I may. And this came about fairly recently. I don't even remember the name of the site that ran the story. But because of the spotlight that's being shown on Ahsoka these days with the eve of the live action series, there's been a lot of these websites, which ones I'm talking about, going back in time and looking at the history of the character. And they're going back to, Jim, talk about, been there from the beginning, been there through all of that. Some of my earliest podcast adventures were around that period of time when the Clone Wars movie was coming out in that first season of Clone Wars. Mm-hmm. And the character of Ahsoka shows up and she just comes out of the blue. We didn't know that Anakin Skywalker had a Padawan. Not only did he have a Padawan, it was a girl. She kind of had an attitude. She didn't show a lot of deference and respect to her elders. She had goofy nicknames for everybody. She was kind of annoying. She really was kind of annoying, and fans responded in kind. But 2 things happened. One, the character over time did evolve, and Dave Filoni started to take more ownership over the character because, honestly, George liked a lot of that sort of juvenile humor and some of the more kid friendly stuff. It was very popular, still is, but it was definitely very popular back then to have the kids always smarter than the adults in the room and the parents. But Dave, I think, saw a lot of potential in this character and really sort of nurtured it, grew it. So that happened. And also fans got to know Ashley Eckstein, and you started rooting for Ashley because she was immediately relatable and likable to the fans. And so fans started maybe giving Ahsoka a little bit more slack because they liked Ashley so much. But what I'm seeing in some of these websites is they're trying to use those early reactions to Ahsoka as a way to attack Star Wars fans. Oh, even back then they were toxic. Even back then they didn't like female characters. Even back then, all this stuff. And I'm like, whoa. Not only were we there, we were on the front lines. We were hearing directly from fans. We were covering this stuff, going back to the film itself coming out, the Clone Wars film. So my biggest fear, EJ from Florida asked what my biggest fear is. My biggest fear is that the history of this character is completely misrepresented and washed away and used to clobber Star Wars fans and portray them as something that they're not. And I just had to get it off my chest because it's really, really bothered me, because I think it's a complete misrepresentation of the way fans reacted to Ahsoka. It had nothing to do with her being a girl. It had nothing to do with her being young. It had everything to do with the way the character was written and how she was interacting with these legacy characters. And at that time, we never thought we'd see them again in live action form. So the animation was all we were going to get. So you had to take them seriously. There is no A tier, B tier. It had to be taken seriously because that was Master Skywalker. That was Master Windu. That was Master Yoda. So, okay, rant over, but that's been on my mind for a couple of weeks.
No, well, I mean, that's really great that you're throwing it out there because, yeah, we were boots on the ground when Clone Wars was debuting. And I think via a lot of the influence of our podcasting from that era led to eventual acceptance of Ahsoka within a certain realm of the fan base. But what was it that we liked about Ahsoka so much back in the day is what I'm trying to determine. I think that I was approaching Star Wars in a similar way George Lucas himself was approaching Star Wars in that era. I had young kids. My youngest son, Dylan Mack, he had this connection with Ahsoka. It was like love at first sight. It really was. And then because of our podcasting and some doors that got open to us very early on, we met Ashley and got to know her and see what made her tick. And I was just tickled to death that she was married to David Eckstein because I'm a baseball fanatic. But Ashley was an irresistible force back then, and she still is today. But we didn't know what to expect from her.
Right.
Some fans knew her. Ashley Drain. We would get emails. Ashley Drain is going to be in the new Star Wars show. And I'd be like, what? Oh, Buffy from That's So Raven is going to be in Star Wars. I remember the whole twist and turn and emotional roller coaster I was going on is the new Star Wars was gradually revealing itself to us.
And by the way, long-time listeners remember that Jimmy Mack was quite the Not So Raven fan back in the day.
I still am.
iCarly, Not So Raven, all those shows.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I liked Raven better than Carly. And I haven't quite jumped on board with the new era of iCarly. But I know it's sitting there waiting for me when I'm ready for it.
When you're ready.
So, I just look back and say, what made us so different? What was so appealing about Ahsoka to us? And I think a lot of it has to do with the fact, like I said, like George Lucas, he had his fingerprints all over Ahsoka as far as the creative edge goes. And he also had 2 daughters and a young son. And I think George was crafting Star Wars to appeal to them. That was his target audience at the end of the day, the children living in his house. And they were growing older by the time Clone Wars finally hit the screens. But George had been developing it for a couple years prior. And I just thought that he was pushing Star Wars into directions where he thought he would leave behind something that his kids would enjoy and then his grandkids would eventually enjoy and stuff. And so I appreciated Ahsoka because, like I said, my young son then connected immediately with the character. And I was so ready for some fresh Star Wars because feeling devastated after Revenge of the Sith came and went in 2005. And George was saying, that's it.
That was it.
It's over.
I'm so glad that you brought up Dylan because, there was Dylan, there was Chase Norton, Sheldon Norton's son. There were a lot of kids of the sort of original generation of RFR listeners. So we were sort of experiencing it. My kids came along a few years later, but you were experiencing it through your kids. And we were hearing from a lot of listeners that had kids Dylan's age and younger that were really into it. So we definitely got caught up in that. It was also not so strange for us that grew up with 70s and 80s cartoons, particularly those based on live action properties, where they would take the live action characters and then throw like young teenage characters into the series. You know, Happy Days, Mork and Mindy, Laverne and Shirley,
Wonder Twins,
activate. Right? Absolutely. Where they would do that, they would throw in it would either be like a young kid or like some like magical character, like the Flintstones when it became the Pebbles and Bam Bam, and they were the Flintstones. They were like grown up and married, Pebbles and Bam Bam, and all that. So it wasn't so weird for those of us that grew up during that time of animated shows, coming from live action where they did wacky things. Ahsoka was no more wacky than the Wonder Twins, I'll tell you that. Anyway, it is important, I think, that the history of that character, and there were some things, Ashley's talking about, she was aware of the initial, and by the way, some of the initial stuff that Ashley was hearing was not coming necessarily from fans, but from critics writing reviews of the Clone Wars movie. These are professionals. These aren't people just sitting behind Twitter. Keep in mind, that was, how many years ago now did that Clone Wars movie come out? 17?
15
years ago.
I want to say it was 2008.
That seems about right. Yeah, it was about 3 years after Revenge of the Sith. Yeah. So a lot of that criticism was from the critics, and I have no doubt that it was hard on Ashley. And Ashley has said in interviews what made it more difficult was by the time the movie came out, she had already voiced a whole second season, I believe, of this series. So she knew what was in store for that character. And so that was made it more difficult too, because she knew that there was a lot of potential out there. And, there's no question that Ahsoka Tano is the Harley Quinn of the Star Wars universe, the most popular character to spring out of an animated series and go into the canon and into the collective consciousness of fans around a franchise. There's no question. One, if not the most popular. There's two that come to mind. There's Ahsoka Tano and there's Grogu Baby Yoda. Those are the most popular characters to emerge, I think, since the the prequel trilogy.
So, for a while, I think there were many years you could put Mara Jade into that lineup as well.
Yeah, I think you're right. She was
Mara Jade. I always call her Mara. I don't know what
she was popular with everybody except one person, the most important person.
As the creator of Mara Jade,
Wait! I am not the creator of Mara Jade, and I want you to get out of this office right now. Out!
You didn't
Good
like
stuff. Well, I'll tell you what, this conversation and this voicemail from EJ, we haven't completed answering him yet, though.
No,
because
that's
he
true.
asked what we wanted to see from Ahsoka. But I just wanted to say, I think it's kind of fun to look back at some of these early reactions to the character. And so maybe I'll whip up something for next week on RFR, our penultimate show prior to the Ahsoka debut. I think I'll put together a collection of some Ashley Eckstein and Dave Filoni comments made here exclusively on our podcast.
The evolution of Ahsoka.
Discussing the character in the early days. Just to remind folks, who might not have been there at that time.
Yeah.
And that's what I like about RFR the best, is that we are kind of capturing moments in time throughout the history of Star Wars and archiving it and creating a historical record based on a fan perspective, as opposed to
it's a time capsule.
studio.
It's an ongoing time capsule of fandom, and I don't think anyone honestly has ever done it the way we've done it, as far as it being preserved in audio format like this. Yeah, you could go back. Jim, even some of the old message boards aren't there anymore.
Right.
You know,
Yes.
going into our podcast adventures, it was before social media. People out there, you're not going to believe this. We used to have arguments about whether or not we could post episodes of the old show we used to do on social media. We would get scolded for posting things on social media. Remember those days?
Because it took business away from the website. It took eyeballs away from the... Why would we reveal that information on social media when we should tell them to go to the website instead?
Exactly.
Like, well, everyone else is beating us to the punch, man. You can't act like dinosaurs around here.
But that's how different the landscape was at that time.
Yes.
So those forums and those
people didn't know. There were emerging technologies happening.
But all of those things that chronicled fandom, when you look at websites and web forums and stuff, they're gone. You have to get in that Wayback Machine or whatever it is online, and still that's pretty shaky. But RFR, 15 plus years spanning both podcasts, talk about the ability to relive fandom on the front lines. It really is tremendous. And it's not, obviously we had a lot to do with it, but it's you guys too. I mean, the relationships that we've forged, and friendships, and just having that dialogue between us. We're all fellow travelers in this world of Star Wars fandom. That conversation that happens every week between us and you guys, it's really incredible. I have heard, Jim, I don't know, but there are some people that have been posting on the Rebel Force Radio Facebook group that have gone back and started listening to the early episodes, and yeah, they're binging. They're Rebel Force Radio binging.
Yes. I always worry that these people are going to hold me accountable for something I said, like 18 years ago.
Of course.
And it has been 18 years, Jason. You said 15, but I mean, we're coming up on 18.
18 years.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
We're coming up on 18 here in September. And I mean, even StarWars.com itself has gone through a few scrubs where you can't find actual Star Wars history as documented by the people at Lucasfilm. The people who were there. I mean, a lot of great coverage that those guys did. I'm thinking about names like Bonnie Burton, our buddy Bonnie. I mean, just some of the great stuff that she and the crew did there at StarWars.com is just gone forever. And
I think my favorite era of StarWars.com was when you had the hyperspace add-on, where you could be a member of hyperspace, and you could get on those webcams that they'd have hooked up, where you could watch filming of Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith, and
wasn't it just like a still photo every 10
they would take
seconds?
a picture like every right. But boy, if you were up at 4 a.m. Eastern time on a random Thursday, you might catch a glimpse of Ian McDiarmid in the robes as Palpatine. So yeah. But that was just a crazy time. But what am I looking forward to the most for Ahsoka? Boy, is it cheating to say I'm really looking forward to the after shows? Because I really am. They're some of my favorite. It's really my favorite part about a lot of this new Star Wars content. I think beyond that, I'm looking forward to seeing. I think at the end of the day, that Rebels crew reunited in live action. I think that's really going to be a lot of fun to see them.
And plus the resolution of the Ezra Thrawn Purgles mystery. Where the hell did they go? I mean, we've been wondering now for what, 6 years? 7 years. Where did those guys go when the Purgles made the jump to Lightspeed? Yeah. So, and what's going to happen when they return? And what's up with them when they return? What kind of people are they? I mean, the return of Thrawn is heralding the return of the Empire.
Right.
The return of Ezra could mean very good things for the Jedi, Ahsoka specifically, or very bad things. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's going to be exciting. 2 more weeks, and we'll be doing it, those live after shows. By the way, make sure that you're subscribed to the Rebel Force Radio YouTube channel. Make sure you have notifications turned on so that you'll get those notifications. They usually hit you up about a half hour before we go live. And we'll be pretty consistent with the schedule. There are times we have to kind of move things around a little bit, but look for us on Wednesday nights, 8 o'clock p.m. Eastern Time for those after shows. And
awesome.
It's going to be great. All right, I think it's time for headlines.
Let's do it.
I have good news for you, my lord.
That's good news. Come closer, I have good news.
Oh, well, of course, Ahsoka is in the headlines. That's what everybody's talking about. That's what we're talking about. And there's a new trailer. And Jim, did this premiere Thursday Night Football last week? Or
you got me on that. I wasn't watching the game. So.
Okay, all right.
Well, I was not, man.
What they have third stringers in there? That Hall of Fame game never has the A-listers. We'll say that. It's really an exhibition game more than anything.
You know, we live in the internet age, so I can't rely on network broadcast times to provide me a first glimpse of anything. Usually my first glimpse happens early in the morning when I'm how do you say morning constitutional time? Let's just say. Mm-hmm. Look what's going on there.
Yeah, the 3 S's in the morning. You know, shower, shave, and that other one.
And then sometimes I'll be sitting in there. I'll have the sound up and everything. I hear this sound from the other side of the door. Turn it down. It's like, oh, too early.
Watching the new Ahsoka trailer.
Come on. So that's how things happen, and that's how we consume content in the year 2023. Typically, it's on the tarlet, and that's probably where I saw this Ahsoka trailer. It was a TV spot. Jason says it may have premiered adjacent to some Cleveland Browns football game. Who knows? That's even a bigger mystery is who's actually watching Cleveland Brown football games.
Hey, that was Thursday Night Football. It was, it's a broadcast. It's a big deal.
Yeah, but the season hasn't even started yet.
Yeah, I know.
I mean, nobody's watching.
It's not even preseason.
So, Ahsoka trailer coming at you.
Yes.
This is a brand new one. It's not a trailer. It's just like a promo spot.
TV spot.
You can find it on YouTube. You can find it at the official website anywhere. And I thought we could just breeze through it, maybe listen to some of the dialogue, take a look at some of the visuals, and get our last gasp at clues and hints for the incoming season.
All right, let's do it. Here we go. Now or never.
Double-bladed sabers
right.
with Ahsoka. We've seen this shot a few times. She's squaring off between the Inquisitor and the one of those
what are the droids, the training droids,
protectors of the magistrate, Morgan Elsbeth.
Oh, yeah, right. The guard droids.
So all these guys here, it's Ahsoka on one side. You have this mysterious Inquisitor Merrick and one of the magistrate's bodyguard droids facing off against Ahsoka. So they are both associated with the magistrate. And she's going to be the main, the antagonist until Thrawn comes along, I think. And with her comes the gang, Baylan Skull, Shin Hati, and Merrick.
Right.
She's coming.
All right, so we get a little shot of Baylan Skull in hologram form. she is coming. Could it be? Could Baylan Skoll be talking to Thrawn here, talking about Ahsoka? Is that the she?
I think he is probably communicating with Morgan Elsbeth.
Aha.
She is coming.
Yeah.
Meaning you better get these Inquisitors, these ex-Inquisitors and bodyguard droids, get them out there because here come Ahsoka.
Yeah.
Continuing the battle sequence between... See, the Inquisitor lays back and lets the droid jump into action first.
I noticed that. Look at that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You got to tire out Ahsoka a little bit
Send
first.
the droid.
And it didn't end up well for those guys. So.
No, definitely not. All right, we got some Ahsoka action here.
Was she running in a field at night or something back there?
Yeah, this looks a lot like that. Ooh, and who's behind her? Is that the Inquisitor?
I bet that's Sabine.
Or is it Sabine?
I think just because it looks like they're running through like a wheat field or something, that makes me think they're running through a field on Lothal.
Yeah, that could be.
I believe we'll see.
She's
Lothal
helmeted, so it looks like she's wearing a helmet, whoever that is. That could be Sabine in her helmet.
I'm thinking Sabine. Look like an Imperial shuttle there.
Shots, yeah, we've seen that. The shuttle, and then the close-ups here, and this is likely the springing of Elsbeth.
Oh, right.
They have to get her out of custody. She's been taken in to the New Republic.
As seen in Mandalorian Season 2.
Right.
And all of the events in Ahsoka this season is supposed to be running parallel to the events happening in Mandalorian Season 3, from what I am led to understand.
Oh, interesting. Okay, so the other end of the camera, so to speak.
Right. So we might be getting a sense of what's happening with Din Djarin and Bo-Katan and that gang.
I wonder if there's any or going to be any Moff Gideon in Ahsoka, or at least reference to Moff Gideon. You know, we saw him with that whole crew of Imperial remnant warlords.
The Shadow Council.
The Shadow Council, that's right, talking about Thrawn's return. So it could, if this is happening concurrently with those events, maybe there's something on the other side that we'll see.
Interesting. Yeah. There's been no hints about Moff Gideon or any characters from the Mandalorian actually crossing over into the Ahsoka series. There hasn't been any hints about that.
No, there haven't. So here we see Morgan Elsbeth getting that map up that we've talked about, perhaps.
So she's in some Stonehenge area.
Yeah.
Star
Wars Stonehenge.
I think about the planet Tython, where the rock that they placed Grogu on so he could communicate to Luke. I sort of feel like that this is a similar environment, if not the same planet, but I could be way off on that. It's just the Stonehenge element of it. Reminds me of that.
It's definitely some sort of sacred area that has some power to amplify abilities and things like that. So that's, yeah.
Or it could be a portal into the world between worlds.
It could be.
Yeah.
Could be.
So here's Morgan.
It's not safe.
She has a big star map that sort of acts as a dome, almost a holographic type dome around this.
Right.
The very environment they're in. But Ahsoka's there. So she appears there and has a showdown then with Baylan Skoll.
Safe.
At least. We see
so
that
she's
here.
it sounds like Ahsoka is gonna crash this party. So you see them hanging out here, and
Yes.
Ahsoka's gonna show up.
Hello.
Hello there.
That would be great. She's like, I'm taking it from him. She's still a smartass. That's what I want Ahsoka to still be a smartass. I hope that Rosario Dawson felt the same way. And Dave Filoni felt the same way. Because Ahsoka wasn't that much of a smartass in Star Wars Rebels. Not from what...
No, she's very serious.
I can recall. She's super serious. And she really stands by that whole I'm not a Jedi thing.
Right.
There's a couple of moments in Star Wars Rebels where she refuses to act because she's no longer a Jedi. The example I'm thinking of is when Kanan and Ezra take her to the Jedi temple that's hidden on Lothal, and they request her assistance to access it because you can only access it via the Force. And she says, no, I can't do it. I'm not a Jedi. So I wonder if we're going to see similar resistance to, stepping up sometimes when the moment is necessary from Ahsoka in this series.
Showdown. We have the clashing. Yep.
Clashing sabers. I like how you say it, Jason Bear. The clash of the sabers.
And here's Sabine on her little speeder
on Lothal. Clearly, that's you can see the rebuilt city in the background that we see at the end of Star Wars Rebels, and you see Sabine riding out on that long runway type highway that they like the only road they have running in and out of.
One road on Lothal,
the Lothal city.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we've seen that since the earliest episodes of Rebels.
It's now or never.
Could use the help, she says. So now this is clear that this is Ahsoka asking Sabine to come back into the fray. I need the help.
Did you hear what Sabine said? Did you hear what?
It's now or never. It's now or never.
Jason's been really...
Hold me tight.
He was putting on quite a concert before the show started. And we were revealing this content. We were reviewing this content, and he discovered the name of this trailer is what, Jason?
It's now or never.
All right, that's enough.
All right. And here is Hera. Yep, Hera in her leather bomber jacket. Some droids running around. Yeah,
looking great. She still has that X-wing type orange jumpsuit.
What's that on the back of her jacket? Do we?
Oh, there is a symbol on the back. I can't quite make out what that's supposed to represent, but there's something familiar about it.
Yeah. Something familiar about this.
I feel like
what? All right, August 23rd.
The ghost.
Oh, what?
Did you see the ghost?
Oh, I lost our
I
spot.
get excited looking at live action Ghost.
Yes.
Because while we have seen it before, just briefly, like it shows up in The Rise of Skywalker. Does it not? It shows up in The Rise of Skywalker. I believe it can be briefly glimpsed at in Rogue One.
Yes.
But it's parked. Now we're seeing the Ghost in full flight, having hero moments, not part of a big pastiche of starships. This is
right.
And I think that's kind of exciting. I think seeing all of these Rebels characters and the Ghost itself, I think that's very exciting to see it all in live action.
Yeah. I mean, I can't think of a time when we've seen this type of interpretation of animated characters into live action form, and but having originally started out based in a franchise that was live, it's all over the place. Starts out as live action, it goes in animation, and then it comes back out as live action.
The only thing that I can think of, well, I mean, we had Cad Bane show up in Mandalorian season 2.
Oh, I mean, it's happened. I mean, they've taken animated characters.
Fett.
Yeah,
I'm sorry,
no, it's happened. I'm just talking about this, the whole mythology of Star Wars and the storytelling, how it's gone, from live action into animation, now back to live action. It's just been fascinating to watch it. And especially with a guy like Dave Filoni, who's been at the helm of the animation side for so long, to say, okay, well, now I have a chance to tell these stories on a much larger canvas and using real actors. And yeah.
But so, I mean, really, though, these are the first characters to make the jump from animation
right
into live action outside of Cad Bane himself. We haven't seen any. I mean, okay, Hondo Ohnaka appears as an animatronic thing at the Disney parks.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So that's a pretty bold leap into three-dimensional reality. But outside of Cad Bane and the brief glimpse we got of Zeb in season 3, this is really,
well, I remember when it was a big deal. When it was a big deal to see a live action character go into animation. Oh wow, it's Walrus Man in Kenner colors.
And now those are
exciting.
Toys even.
I know. We were knocked out by that.
By the time this is all over and done with, we will have no grasp of reality whatsoever.
Right. Oh, Vader, seeing animated Vader, that was a big deal. The first time we saw an animated Vader was at the second season of that Genndy Tartakovsky series. There was a flash forward episode. We saw the helmet as Anakin. Remember when Anakin was shirtless and had all the blue tattoos?
Oh, yeah.
And he had a
when
flash
he was
forward.
That vision.
The vision. Yeah. Had that vision. Yeah. And then, of course, we saw Vader in Rebels.
Now, you have it freeze framed here on Balin's skull. And just his overall presence gives me some Count Dooku vibes that I don't recall feeling before with this character.
Definitely.
And who's he with? I mean, he definitely has a presence, and his stature is felt when he enters into the scene.
But who are these cats here? These
I think those are the droid bodyguards of Morgan Elsbeth. From what I can tell,
they're all droids?
Yeah.
They're all droids? Okay.
Yep. We see them in season 2 of The Mandalorian, chapter 13.
They're all droids. Huh. Okay.
They're all droids. Action figures, Hasbro. Action figures. Where's my Balin skull? I should have it already.
He should have been an early bird. We should have been able to mail away for him with some proofs of purchase in $9.95.
We get a Midnight Madness about 3 weeks before the premiere. Walk home with 16 characters in plastic. Already getting to know them intimately.
Yes.
Before the show even debuts. What happened to those glory days? They're over.
Here's Merrick,
yes,
the Inquisitor with the double-bladed lightsaber.
Mm-hmm.
Shin.
Almost the way they cut it almost looks like Shin is facing off against Merrick here. But
oh yeah,
so maybe we'll see some infighting amongst these Darksider /
could be trailer tricks too.
I know
trailer tricks they do.
But the thing is, with all these Inquisitors showing up all the time, the thing that really made the rule of 2
pause.
Well, you threw a bunch of stuff out there. It was great to see live action Chopper, though.
Well, I'm running it back.
All these Inquisitors and everything. The reason a rule of 2 was in place amongst the Sith were because more dark side users led to more internal conflict amongst the Sith. They were constantly infighting, and that led to the ultimate destruction of their entire society for what it was. That's why the rule of 2 became necessary. The addition of Inquisitors, who are largely fallen Jedi from what we're led to believe, like the Grand Inquisitor himself was a formal Jedi Temple guard, and other Inquisitors had...
Which tells us that they took prisoners, right? They had to have with Order 66. Though Order 66 looks as though it's a take no prisoners.
Right.
And they were murdering children. So what did the Grand Inquisitor throw himself on his knees at the mercy of the 501st? How did that happen?
Maybe before they killed you during Order 66, they gave you a pamphlet to read about joining the dark side. And if that appealed to you, then they would spare your life and you would go into Inquisitor training immediately.
Re-education.
Yeah. There are some very vague areas here with the whole existence of the Inquisitors to begin with. I was super down with the idea when it was just the one in Rebels Season 1, the Grand Inquisitor.
Yes.
And then Kanan killed him. And that was that. But then the next season, more
all over the
show up.
place. Yeah. Right.
And now they just show up all the time. We used to make a joke about the expanded universe, how they would tell stories about different Darths throughout history.
Oh, yeah.
Different Sith Lords. And we would say, oh, it's the Darth of the week. Who's this? Who's the new Darth this week?
Right.
Well, they've circumvented that whole wackiness by creating the Inquisitors, whose mere existence to me seems to be a threat to the Sith Order in the first place. But I guess with Palpatine having the entire Empire at his command, he could play around then with the ancient rules of the Sith and create a system where dark side users were there for his disposal, and they were disposable at the end of the day. Yes. None of them he actually considered to be worthy of being a Sith Lord by his side.
None of them were apprentices to him or Vader. Although, if this Marrok, M-A-R-R-O-K, turns out to be Galen Marrok from The Force Unleashed, well then that would be I do think that would be a very interesting connection.
It would be. And in that story, Galen was raised. Well, Darth Vader killed his parents.
Right.
Who were strong with the Force. And he was left the last survivor. And he was so strong in the Force, Galen Marrok, that he was able to force pull Vader's own saber out of his hands. And Vader looked at the kid and said, "This is my kind of kid." And so he raised him, the Star Killer. He raised him as sort of, I think, an insurance policy against Palpatine.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, still kept him down. He was never a Sith or anything.
No, and I think that's what Palpatine has probably done with these Inquisitors is, given them just enough information, just enough training amongst themselves to keep them hungry, but no more. No more. They're not going to get the education, the learning that they need to ever be a threat to him or any of or his apprentice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I would like to see that story get fleshed out a little more. I know there is a new novel out, something, The Red Blade, something or another. I have the book. I haven't really dove into it yet, but I don't expect much from these novels anymore. I don't lean on them to provide any sort of real context or fill in the blanks with these stories anymore. Usually, at best, you might get something you could put on Wikipedia that you read in there or something. But I mean, so I don't know about that.
I think the Inquisitors as a concept is something that they could explore later on somewhere.
It needs to be explored via visual storytelling, not in the pages of some novel.
Right.
That very few will read in the grand scheme of fandom in general.
Got the Inquisitorium there where they all hang out, their headquarters.
Yeah, they have an HQ.
Like
a little more fleshing out of their story.
Yeah.
Yeah, a little more fleshing out.
All right. Let's flesh out this trailer.
There's Huang, and there's another one of those bodyguard droids. Hera in the cockpit. Ahsoka.
Oh, let's
Sabine,
get some of this dialogue.
Hera, Ahsoka, Sabine, Chopper.
We got some
Hera,
readies.
Shin,
Get ready.
Hera, Sabine.
Yeah,
Chopper.
Chop.
Hera,
Look at him.
Sabine, Chopper, Hera, Sabine. I love seeing Ahsoka's starship.
Ahsoka, 2-episode premiere August 23rd.
Sabine dueling with the green blade.
Yeah.
Ezra's saber. Yeah, so we'll see some Sabine and Shin dueling. How far are we going to go with Sabine and her usage of the Jedi arts, like lightsaber dueling, etc.? There's been some thought to the idea that she may have actually been an apprentice to Ahsoka.
Yeah.
How far are we going to go as far as Sabine having Force ability? Is that going to be revealed in this series?
It seems a bit of a stretch to me, although the character did seem throughout Rebels to be imbued with great skills. You know, whenever there was a problem, Sabine had a solution, or she was the solution.
Often the ability to see things before they happen.
Yeah.
Without actually, we're like, I had a vision, It was
Right.
just the instincts were there.
Yeah, what you see Anakin Skywalker in Phantom Menace exhibiting, almost a childlike ability, innate ability she doesn't understand or even think is unusual. You know, it very well could be that they start to make it such that the Force does not discriminate, that it's not always about the ones with the highest midichlorian count. You got to figure this, Jim. There's the top of the class and there's the bottom of the class. If you got somebody with the highest midichlorian count, you got somebody with the lowest midichlorian count. But they're still midichlorians. So who knows? You know, back in the day, guys like you and I, we believed that if you trained and you studied the Force, you too could be a Jedi. We didn't have any idea that it had to do with your blood.
No, well, I mean, it was always said, it runs strong in my family. So I always assumed there was some sort of hereditary factor involved.
You didn't think that you could be a Jedi? Ability. You thought that unless mom and dad was
I was
a Jedi?
More of a Han Solo, No.
Really?
No, I never, ever felt like it was something, if I just studied really hard, I could become a Jedi. No, I think it's always very clear that it was something that ran strongly throughout a bloodline.
You didn't think that you could be a Jedi? You thought that unless mom and dad was a Jedi?
It was something that was passed on from generation to generation. The Force always run strong in my family.
I really thought if I just ran around the woods and swung on tree vines and did backward flips that I could be a Jedi.
Well, then Ben Kenobi could have sent anyone to go see Yoda.
Well,
no, he stayed there on Tatooine and for 2+ decades watching this kid grow up on a farm because the kid was strong in the Force because his father was strong in the Force. And that's why Obi-Wan committed, and that's why it wasn't just like send anyone to see Yoda to run around.
Well, not just anyone.
You look like you're in good shape. You hear some guy saying to some young dude in Mos Eisley, I mean, it might start raising eyebrows, So,
good point.
You sure look strong and healthy. What, old man?
Yeah, I
that
want
would
to
be
hear
like the Family Guy depiction of Ben Kenobi.
Yeah,
spread that butter.
Spread that butter.
How am I doing?
Just keep your knees bent. Imagine you're spreading butter on a big piece of bread. That's it. Spread that butter with the Force.
The old perv. It'll be interesting to hear Filoni whenever they're allowed to start talking about this stuff. That's going to be tough. We're going to see these episodes. These people will still be on strike. They won't be able to. They won't be able to comment on anything. Well, that's right. It leaves room for us. Rebel Force Radio. We'll have the first word. I love it. but if she ends up being force sensitive, when I was writing the character, I always thought that she would be. Yeah, I can hear it. I can hear him tap dancing.
When George developed Luke, here's something I do fear is a character like Ahsoka or Sabine. Is their mere presence going to have some sort of influence on unfolding the things that Luke Skywalker achieved in the original trilogy?
Right.
Because this is a follow-up to that.
Right.
And that's something that made people very upset about the sequel trilogy, was the idea that it undid certain elements that the original trilogy had really laid down in concrete, So I worry about that, but I don't know. I think Dave Filoni is steeped in Star Wars and understands exactly where the boundaries are.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't see him wanting to revise things or certain point of view us to death. Because that's an easy out for Filoni.
Oh,
he's been using that certain point of view line on us, I think, going back to 2007.
And if that wasn't enough, he gave us the World Between Worlds. So he's got outs galore with this stuff.
He's got the exit sign over a few doors right now. So. But
right,
those are little things I worry about.
Yeah,
we could get into midi-chlorians and all that stuff. I don't really want to. There's just one thing I want to throw out there, though.
Okay.
And this is something that inspired a line of thought with me when we got to the end of the sequel trilogy. The first film was called The Force Awakens. The last film featured revelations from stormtroopers who suddenly they were bred to be these soldiers for the Empire. What do? They put down their guns. They don't know why. They're all reacting in this certain way. Finn says it's the Force. And we also know that during the time of the original trilogy, the Force was basically non-existent. The balance of the Force had tipped all the way to the dark side. And so most people, you think most people are really comprised of elements of goodness. Thus, the evil people had sort of a monopoly on the Force, and people couldn't tap into it. I kind of was inspired to think that following the events of Episode 9, the Force Awakening really became a thing where lots of people in the galaxy were able to tap into it. And with training, anyone could become a Jedi, like what you were saying, Jason.
Yeah, right. Okay.
That kind of thought process is non-existent in the original trilogy era because the Sith have a monopoly on the Force. You can't use it.
They're clouding.
Once the Force is awakened and once the rise of Skywalker is complete, then the Force opens up more to the galaxy. That's why all those starships showed up to aid Lando and the Resistance at the end of the film. Was the result of the Force Awakening. People are getting touched by the Force and they don't even know it. They're just doing normal things, but it's all in an effort.
You could say it's sort of the galaxy correcting itself, right? That's sort of what the Force does. It always has to maintain a balance, and so people may be acting. They think they're acting autonomously, but yet it is a greater thing that is animating them.
Yeah, there's something in the air.
Right.
And it's the same thing. You see it on display during the dark times as Palpatine and the Empire controlled the galaxy. You see it in a show like Andor where people are backstabbing. People are working underground. People are not who they appear to be. Even in the effort to defeat the Empire, a guy like Stellan Skarsgård says, I am doomed to use the tools of my enemy against him.
Yes.
He's fighting the righteous fight. What's the character's name again?
You're going to say
because I said Stellan Skarsgård.
Right. The actor. Luthen.
But so like
Rail.
even the
Luthen Rail.
Even like his efforts are really the thing that's sparking the flame of rebellion, but he is using the most evil methods at his disposal.
Yeah.
He has no choice. He has no choice.
He doesn't have any Jedi power. Right. He just has no Force power.
That's just the way the game is being played.
Right.
And it's out of his control. And that's the difference between, that's the balance of the Force tipping, and the whole galaxy gets sucked into the vortex along with it.
Yeah, well, it's a war that's being fought on two fronts. There's a spiritual war, and then there's a physical, material war that's happening. And when
but most people have no connection to the spiritual thing,
right?
Whatsoever.
Right. But I do think that was one of the more compelling ideas that George had in his original treatments for the sequel trilogy was, and people misinterpreted it and said, "Oh, we're going to be watching the action through a microscope." There, George is talking about how these elements, the midichlorians and things, kind of work together and shape the destiny of the galaxy and all that. And that wasn't really what it was. I think he was talking about this spiritual war, or the spirit animating what's happening in the physical realm. So cool stuff, that's for sure. Rosario Dawson recently, well, it was recently released, her interview clips about her interview with Entertainment Weekly, but I'm sure that she didn't cross the picket line to do this interview with Entertainment Weekly.
From what I'm led to believe, that this stuff was done via Zoom before the strike happened.
Right.
So.
Yeah. It's all on the up and up.
It's fresh. These are fresh comments.
Don't call her a scab.
This video just dropped within the last week. So these are all fresh comments, at least to us.
Yeah.
So I think she may have recorded this at some point in June.
Okay.
Yeah. And Entertainment Weekly has been stockpiling interviews with cast and crew of not only Ahsoka, but Acolyte, Skeleton Crew, Andor, anything in production right now. Entertainment Weekly has the inside line to these actors, and so they're putting it out there, and we're gonna take what these actors had to say and analyze it the Rebel Force Radio way. So here's Rosario, and this first clip, Jason, what's she talking about here?
She's talking about the appealing qualities of Ahsoka.
Oh, okay, yeah, this is good stuff, because I'll tell you right now, she's done her homework. That's one thing that I can tell about Rosario Dawson. She has done her homework, and she has watched this stuff and soaked it in like a fan does. So here's Rosario talking about the character of Ahsoka Tano.
I've always loved her confidence and her capability. I love what an incredible, fierce, passionate, true, loyal being she is. Like there's something so consistent about her. But that doesn't mean that it's not tried, it's not challenged, it's not provoked, that she's not had sacrifice. Like we've just been able to grow up with her. She's such an expert. She's such a master. And to see her get better and better, I think that's so interesting when someone is so talented and so skilled and so expert, and you can still see that they have levels to go to. Like when you look at someone who's capable and you're like, okay, that's it, and you move on. And I think there's something so remarkable about being able to see through that and know that you can ask for more, that you can push it further. And that's what's required of a warrior like her. But seeing her grapple with that, because, even with these like Jedi tales that came out and you see her origin story as a little baby, how force sensitive she was at such a young age. And the power of it, actually, really, it was really to see her family, her community, her mom, her dad, and these animals and creatures around her all kind of surrender to it, like not truly acknowledge it, is so powerful. And to imagine experiencing that at such a young age, her whole life, where people are looking at her, knowing she's special, and that she's never taken that for granted, and that it's never been, well, you've got that, and that doesn't mean you can get to higher heights.
She definitely has done her homework. She's seen her share of Ahsoka's history from Tales of the Jedi throughout Clone Wars and then Rebels. That's very clear. What's going on with her hair, by the way? She looks like a Vulcan.
Well, she shaved her head to wear those.
Oh, she had to shave her head for that?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. All right.
She's got kind of a Mo Howard do going on right now. But I mean, hey, that's the sacrifices she's making for Star Wars. So God bless her.
I was thinking it was Mr. Spock or something.
Yeah, she still looks great. Yeah. But she's fully committed. And plus, it was just pulling her hair too much. She just wanted to be comfortable. But she's definitely done her homework, watching Tales of the Jedi, taking note of the differences primarily from how Ahsoka grew up with her connection to the Force, being revered, being put in the spotlight, and the people around her all understanding what was going on with her.
Yes.
Very different from Anakin and Luke. Anakin had his mom who thought she was just, mother to a really good kid who happened to have a few special blessings, But she knew something was up with him because he was an immaculate conception.
Right. She can't explain what happened.
And left old Shmi scratching her head, wondering if one night she got overserved at the cantina and went home with a Jawa or something. You never know. And we have learned that Jawas and human female are compatible, according to
Pelimoto dated a Jawa.
Pelimoto's slutty past. But hey, it's canon.
Right.
It's canon. Pelimoto's a slut. It's canon.
R5! See if the Jawas are still out back. Dated a Jawa for a while. They're quite furry. Very furry.
You're welcome for that.
So it's very different. A very different upbringing. Ahsoka was brought to the Jedi Temple as a baby by Plo Koon, who is probably a big celebration for him and high fives for Plo and everything. Anakin's, he was barely allowed to be trained as a Jedi. Yoda was debating that he's too old. Mace Windu had a bad feeling about it and everything. But he was allowed entry because of the primarily I think it was statistical. It was the high midi-chlorian count.
Yes.
But I don't think it went over their head that he's the one who blew up that separatist cruiser as well.
That probably scored him a few more admissions points there to the old school of Jedi wizardry.
Yeah, I think Qui-Gon tells stories about the big day at the race and stuff,
Right. You really wouldn't believe it.
It was unbelievable. I couldn't believe it. The night ahead, we were before the race. We were camping out in the infield there. Oh, hold on now. Oh yeah, sure. There we were. Camping out. There was a wet T-shirt contest there at Mos Espa the night before. I gave the girls a few credits, But, that's just the will of the Force. Ooh, the will of the Force. All right. So,
okay. So definitely a different experience for Ahsoka. She, you might say that she grew up with some privilege there.
Well, sure.
Yeah.
Sure. And that probably led to her having that snarky, at times entitled attitude.
Now you're talking. Character development there.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas somebody like an Anakin Skywalker didn't take it for granted.
Mm-hmm. She's like the teacher's pet, probably coming.
I always knew I was special.
Yeah. Ahsoka's the one who would raise her hand with 5 minutes left in class, saying, Master, didn't you say there was going to be a pop quiz today?
You forgot to collect our homework.
Oh, yeah, sure, pass them forward. Oh, what's this here? I don't see anything from Anakin. Anakin! All right.
No! He forgot his homework. He's eaten by a blurg.
So, more from Rosario.
Yes.
I just love her passion for the character. That comes through loud and clear. Especially when she's citing things like the Tales of the Jedi short and really kind of put her own spin on things, her certain point of view on it, about how Ahsoka was someone who came up like as the golden child, sort of.
Yeah. Do you really think that Rosario was crowdsourced casted, or do you think that they had her in mind and they sort of just threw that out there just to see how the fans would react? That was one of those social medias. Somebody just showed up one day and said, "You know who'd be great in this role?" Rosario Dawson. And then Rosario was like, "I love Ahsoka. I would do that." It's hard to say. I feel like Lucasfilm PR is just so damn manipulative anymore.
There is that does happen. I mean, it's a great story though. So
yeah, sure is.
Yeah, she got wind of it, and some online artist created a mashup of a picture of Rosario with Ahsoka makeup on. Then she retweeted it, and it just happened to catch the attention of Dave Filoni, who we know spends all of his time on Twitter and social media.
Right.
Tell you that, yeah.
Right.
Filoni never looks at that stuff. So you might be onto something here, Jason. There might be a little fairy tale fabricating going on. I know for a fact Dave Filoni never looks at social media, ever. All right.
So the next clip here, we've got Rosario talking about the some of the physical requirements for the role, and having to do all those great fights, these saber battles. We've seen the clips of them in the trailers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, she has to fight like Ahsoka, left-handed and right-handed, two sabers at the same time. And Rosario, I don't think she makes many bones about it. She doesn't consider herself like an athlete or anything. So there were challenges in training to be Ahsoka, and she talks about it here in this clip.
To be ambidextrous is it's really interesting. Like you're working with one arm, but this other one is that was a constant thing of like making sure where's the other arm going this is perfect, but then this one is, and it's very specific about just like where. So I would do these. I remember I worked out this thing with Caitlin, who was my stunt woman on Mandalorian, and she was filming. She lives in Georgia and was filming there. And when I was filming Haunted Mansion, I started training with her early. And then I would work with her on the weekends while we filmed. And so this way I could do 7-day weeks, because I was just like, I just want to keep training. I don't want to get it out of my body. I am not a workouty person. I'm not that kind of thing. So I really I don't want to lag at all. And so it was great. So we worked out like some of our like exercises and things, and just like doing things to keep my shoulders up, my arms at certain levels, because it's just not a natural position to come up to here all the time. These positions have to feel really organic to her. And it's also hard because we're basing this off of an animation. So you've never seen her kind of confined to the abilities of a human being. It was really fun to figure it out, discover it, to play with it, to have it in our bodies, and to work against different people and, speeds and energies and heights and power.
Yeah, that's a good point. That the character was developed and the fighting skills and all of that were developed when the sky was the limit. You could make those character models do virtually anything. And so it's fascinating to think, well, how do you reinterpret the character in the real world without diminishing their abilities, the way we perceive it? Because we've seen Ahsoka do a lot of crazy stuff, flips and jumps and insane things. How does this not look like a watered down version or a lesser version? That's a challenge.
Yeah, I mean, they were having Ahsoka pull off physical feats that were almost Spider-Man-like in the animation.
Yes, right.
Yeah. So, I mean, obviously a line has to be drawn between how far they can push that and what Rosario's doing. Also, Rosario is, she's not like 20. like Ray Park was when he was shooting all that physical Darth Maul stuff. Rosario's in her mid-40s now. So, I mean, there's going to have to be a line drawn between how far they can actually push the physical nature of the character. But, I mean, I think it's fair because Ahsoka, the character herself, is much older than she was in the Clone Wars when she was pulling off all those feats. So,
good point.
So I think that the balance might be a little easier for them to find in live action than we think it would be, and we'll notice it. We'll notice it. I bet just from seeing what the live action Ahsoka was doing in season 2 of The Mandalorian, I thought that was felt very Ahsoka. All those moves felt very Ahsoka.
Oh, yeah.
If they do that, and I'm sure they've improved on that, and they can pull off much more complex things than they did a couple of years ago, then I think the character will be just fine in all those fight sequences. Plus, everything I've seen of the action in this show looks really strong to me. Just in brief glimpses of things we've seen in trailers and highlights and stuff. One thing that's going to be happening in the season of Ahsoka is she'll be having showdowns against Baylan Skull, a character we know very little of. We know he's a Force user. He is a mercenary for hire working for Morgan Elsbeth. I believe he's an ex-Jedi. Not really sure, but unfortunately, Ray Stevenson, the actor behind the character, passed away before the show could even debut. Passed away unexpectedly and young, not even 60 years old. And still no cause of death revealed for the late Ray Stevenson, and not like it's really any of our business. It's alarming when someone his age passes away like that. So maybe it's something they want to keep on the down low.
Could be.
But he sure made an impact on the cast and crew there on the set of Ahsoka, and Rosario shares some thoughts on the late Ray Stevenson.
When I think about Ray, I miss Ray. It's terrible to not be able to share this moment with him, because he definitely, there were moments where I was like fighting for my life and being like, Ray, we're not really battling to the death right now, right? You know this. We're playing characters, it was very heavy-handed, and he gave so much to it. And it was remarkable, like this fight that you've done over and over and over again. And it keeps you very present. He's magnificent, like just proper alpha male, huge, like stature, tall, big. I'm just so grateful that we had Star Wars Celebration together. We all got to see him talk about this role, and he got to feel that from the fans. It moved all of us to be able to see the kind of reaction. And the Star Wars family is really that, very much a family. And I'm just grateful Ray gets to be a part of it. Sadly, if this is the final role, then it's a magnificent one. He did a brilliant job. It was incredible to work with him every day. He was a delight, a joy, a beauty, a love. And I think people are going to be really, really excited about what he brought to this.
Yeah, that's going to be a tough one, because he's going to be, unless his character has a natural on-screen end, which he may, that's not unusual in Star Wars. It's going to be tough. It's going to be tough because then, of course, you'll have discussions about recasting, or will they give him a proper on-screen finale? Will they use CGI? They have a lot of tricks these days to help find closure for some of these characters. So who knows? But as you said, Jim, clearly he had an impact on those in the cast, and certainly on Rosario Dawson, a very hulking figure and someone who really got in. It sounds like he got into the part. But she brings up a great point that he did get a chance to, at least, even if he didn't see the fans experience the show, he got to experience the fans' excitement for the show at Celebration. So that's good.
He got a little rock star treatment there.
Yes.
And I mean, even if he survived, it's not like there's going to be any red carpet premiere for this.
That's true.
Because of the actors' strike, everything has been just muted and diminished.
So Celebration was it for these folks.
That was it.
As far as pomp and circumstance.
Sadly. But I look forward to seeing his character. He looks cool as hell. Something tells me that this season of Ahsoka, with no season 2 guaranteed, that Filoni's going to play it smart, and he's going to keep this very much a self-contained story for season 1. Sure, he'll leave some doors open here and there.
Right.
But I think when you're dealing with major antagonists, the only way to have a satisfying conclusion to your story is to eliminate your major antagonists. And I bet that is going to be the fate of Baylan Skoll in this season of Ahsoka. I think from day one, when Filoni was committing the script to paper, that Baylan Skoll would be a casualty in season 1. So yeah, I don't see any open-ended things setting up next season or anything. It's been made very clear by all the comments and all the interviews and all the news stories that there is no season 2 for Ahsoka. It's all very much in the balance of how successful this season will be for the show. And how do you even measure success when it comes to streaming series these days? It's hard to even tell.
I will push back a little bit on that, because not that anyone is within the Disney ranks is assuming a season 2. However, people are using the milestone of the Filoni feature film and they're doing the calculus backwards. They're doing the math backwards. Okay, so we got a Filoni feature film somewhere out here, and what are we talking about? 2025? Is that the idea that would be the
26?
26.
No films prior to 26.
Right.
That's a fact.
Right.
In summer 26, it'll kick off a 1.5 year period where we supposed
3
to
movies,
get 3 films in that 18-month period.
So they're doing doing the math, and they're saying, okay, we'll likely get another season of Mandalorian, and what else would we need in order to lead up to this? Probably a season 2 of Ahsoka. But you're right to point out that's not a foregone conclusion. Nope. It could be a second season of Book of Boba Fett. Could. We don't know. Remember, Tim Morrison was going to go and talk to the people at see what's going on with my character.
Also, something's been floating around out there that there might not even be a season 4 of Mandalorian. Season 4 will be the feature film, the Mandalorian feature.
And that could be a pivot because of the strikes. Because these things, a month of delay, 2 months of delay, 3 months of delay, that could have impact over years when it comes to the production pipeline of these things. Months could seem like years.
So here we are, 4 months removed from Kathy Kennedy's big announcement of 3 Star Wars films kicking off in 2026. And 4 months removed from that statement, we're already seeing the writing on the wall that release schedule is in, I don't want to say serious jeopardy, but it's in jeopardy.
Well, all the pens have dropped. There's no writing going on. Negotiations with actors, gone, done, paused. So there's no meetings happening. And this strike seems different. There's so many issues. There's so many changes that the business has endured that it's going to take a lot. It's going to take a lot. It's not one simple issue. It's multiple, very complex issues. And it's going to take a real compromise. Both sides on this are going to have to compromise. And that's what collective bargaining is about. So hopefully it'll happen. But
absolutely. But at least we got Ahsoka coming in a couple weeks.
That's right.
Let's just keep our eye on the prize.
Right.
And Rosario Dawson, she is the live action embodiment of that character that we've known all these years from the animated show. The biggest difference between Rosario and Ashley Eckstein is the fact that Ashley didn't have to spend like 4 to 5 hours in a makeup chair every day when she wanted to play the character, but Rosario does.
She showed up in jeans and a hoodie, and everything was all right.
Right. She used a pencil as a lightsaber while she's standing behind the microphone. But no, Rosario has to sit in that chair forever. So she talks about the makeup process and so how it's improved since she debuted as Ahsoka in Mando season 2.
It took us 3 hours just for the makeup. But we got it down to about like an hour and a half. And so that's tough, like we're going in at like 4 something in the morning every day so that we can be ready when the crew's there at 6 and have a full day and then still have like at least a half an hour and taking all of it off. And it sprays on with alcohol. So it can be really harsh on the skin. And there was, we figured out some stuff because my arms, everything, I was starting getting really, really dry. My skin was, was kind of going through. So we just kind of kept adjusting. And I think that's just been happening over these past years. The montrals are longer, the exoskeleton that they built, the skeleton, that they built inside is just unbelievable. It's all 3D printed. It moves completely differently. It feels different. It's lighter. But that technology literally didn't exist when we were first doing the character in Mando season 2.
Yeah, you think, oh, well, I just saw that, how many years ago, Mando season 2, but you got to back that up a year. That's when they were actually filming it. So, yeah, technology changes. It's amazing to me, Jim. I remember when 3D printers were first coming on the scene and create little statues and stuff, but they're 3D printing appliances for makeup and costumes and things like that. It's just incredible.
My friends at the Galloping Ghost Arcade also run an arcade reproductions company where they use 3D printing to recreate parts to video game cabinets that are long out of production. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, these guys, they do it all.
You could fabricate any part you need.
Yes.
As long as you have a model to base it off of. Incredible.
So Rosario, the sacrifices that she's making to bring Ahsoka to live action. She cut all of her hair off. Rosario Dawson had long, luscious, beautiful hair. She cut it all off for us fanboys. And
look
then
look at his hair. Look at this. Where she had just
that. Oh my! She cut it all off. Didn't even think twice about it because she's so committed to bring Ahsoka to to streaming and eventually silver screens. But she's also splashing herself with this alcohol-based makeup that eats her skin away. Oh. Listen, I used to be a competitive swimmer in high school, and all that time in that chlorine water made my fair Irish skin set ablaze. I can only imagine what Rosario is dealing with, splashing this alcohol-based makeup all over herself. She said it ruined her skin. And they've made advancements in that department. Swimming pools are still filled with chlorine that still burn my skin. So, as you can imagine, the competitive swimming days are long behind me.
I wouldn't know it.
You wouldn't know it. As I told you, Swank, if we had to jump out of that prison on Narkina and surrounded by seawater and stuff, you could jump right on my back.
I'd have to because I don't swim. So, yeah.
I know. I'll float you ashore.
You're not going to leave me like Andor did.
Andy Serkis.
That's right.
Kino Loy.
You're
the Kino Loy of podcasting. You could just jump on my back and enjoy my remarkable buoyancy as I carry you ashore through the ocean water.
Oh, God. Why am I getting visions of SpongeBob and Patrick riding on the back of David Hasselhoff in that movie? That's what I'm seeing.
That's all I'm thinking about right now. All right, Rosario Dawson.
Uh-huh.
So in addition to the stress that the makeup is putting on her skin and beside the fact she had to shave her head to wear those Ahsoka head tails, she's dealing with anxiety about the show finally premiering. She's very concerned about how fans are going to accept her as Ahsoka. Sure, we've been exposed to Rosario as Ahsoka. And I think that's all we can say. We've been exposed to her playing the character, but we haven't seen her lead a series. We haven't spent quality time with Ahsoka like we need to. And so this is new territory for us fans. It's new territory for Rosario Dawson, too, and she's taking it seriously. So she shares a little bit of her anxiety and excitement for the season to finally premiere.
I'm probably the most anxious that I've ever been in my entire career over the reception of this, which I felt at different stages when Mando and Boba Fett came out, but it's really different thing to come onto a character that I felt that maybe a little bit in Rent, maybe a little bit even in Sin City, but when you're playing a character that has been so special for so many fans for so many years in such a particular way, it's definitely intense, kind of approaching it with a new kind of perspective. But I really, really hope that the fans love it, because, that means we A, get to do more, but B, it means that we've honored the legacy of this character and this journey. And I know that's what we intended to do. I'm going to be watching those fan reactions, because that was amazing to watch on Mando. And I really am hoping that that is the same experience people have watching this.
All right, fans, behave yourselves, because Rosario is watching.
Yeah.
So come on. Keep it all above board here. Even if it's not your cup of tea. Give it a try. Hey, by the way, going off script a little bit here, but there was a tweet. I don't know if you saw this, Jim. There was a tweet that went out. And apparently this particular person, this is Cryptic HD Quality, has some credibility. Apparently was able to peg the runtime of Mando Season 3. But at any rate, this is what is being thrown out as the runtime for episodes 1 and 2 put together. 1 hour, 36 minutes, 36 seconds for the 2 episodes combined. So that is a, I guess we could say internet, right? At this point, it's not a leak. It's a rumor, but this particular individual has had success in the past at predicting or leaking this. So wouldn't be unusual. So we got a 90-minute premiere on August 23rd.
Little
That's
more
about
than 98 minutes.
98, right.
Yeah, so that leaves us with 46-minute long.
Yeah, that works. Not really going on a limb.
I'm a little off on that, minus a few minutes, but who cares? That's all credits anyway. You know what I'm saying?
A lot of credits, yeah.
You probably get a pair of 40-minute episodes when it's all said and done, removing the credits.
Yeah.
And that seems very consistent with the runtime of your typical Filoni Favreau-verse episodes, Boba Fett, Mandalorian, and now Ahsoka.
Kenobi also gave us a episode premiere, didn't it? There was a 2-episode premiere.
I don't remember Kenobi. I don't remember how long those things are. By the way, I'm really enjoying the film edit of the Kenobi series called the Patterson edit. And I recommend people look that up. I think that is the way to watch the show. You discover there's really an amazing story there when the editing is a little more focused. And while I like the mini series itself, I think that the finest parts of the story get highlighted in the Patterson edit much more clearly. So all you have to do, it's the edit of Kenobi that it was getting a lot of buzz when the series wrapped up. I think even Variety covered it. everything the Patterson edit. You could find it online, and it doesn't cost you anything. And it's the Patterson cut. I'm sorry, that's what we're calling it, the Patterson cut.
Mm-hmm.
And this guy is a skilled editor who has not only created a film out of the Kenobi miniseries, but he's also incorporated some special effects.
Oh, really? He created some new stuff.
Yes, to a degree, and also he incorporates the John Williams music into the edit, adds a crawl, repurposes scenes, rearranges scenes. It plays out like it's a Star Wars film.
Wow.
And I find it entirely compelling. It plays out like a cinematic experience. So Kai Patterson is his name. It's an edit that shows reverence to the material that was shot by Deborah Chow in Lucasfilm. And I think it just streamlines the story in a way that focuses on Vader and Ben. And isn't that the purpose of this whole series in the first place? Abso-freaking-lutely. And so when you see what a very focused edit does of that story, I think you might find it a little more impactful. So it's not often that me and Jason will ever recommend a fan edit or even a fan film on these airwaves. It's just that I think this guy did it right. He did a great job. So search it out. The Patterson cut.
The Patterson cut. Yeah, I've got it. I need to sit down and watch it. Okay, more Rosario.
Wrapping up Rosario with one final cut. And this is kind of interesting because it goes back to the discussion we were having. Could there be a season 2? Is there potential for that? Well, Rosario is certainly on board for appearing with those head tails a little more often in the future. She definitely desires more opportunities to play Ahsoka Tano beyond this season.
Whatever comes next, if more comes next, I'd be really excited and grateful because I feel like every time I get to step into her shoes, I learn more, I experience what I could never experience otherwise, and I get better. I feel like I keep getting better. It keeps landing in my body. And so I'd love that opportunity to keep exploring.
Well, I think she's going to get her opportunity, if not in a season 2, I think in a live action Dave Filoni film in 2026. We hope 2026, which could be some sort of culmination, might even be, Jim, that Filoni film might be sort of the official end of this particular era of the Star Wars story. No. It's quite possible. It could be the end of Mando, the end of Baby Yoda. It could be the end of Old Man
That's
Boba.
That's not true. That's impossible.
And all that will be left is the High Republic. And
all right.
Hey, how about this Gareth Edwards thing? You want to do that?
Oh, yeah, let's
talk about
throw
that.
this in here real quick, just because, Rogue One is generally considered by most Star Wars fans to be the highest point of the Disney Star Wars era film releases of all of them. I mean, I think Rogue One is the one that most people consider to be the classic. And Gareth Edwards was the director of that original shoot, and he was there for the entire process of building the foundation of this story, and even down to like applying the names to the characters and places they go. And one of those places is the planet Scarif, where all the action happens at the end of the film. And Gareth reveals in this ILM video that was released on Industrial Light and Magic socials over the course of the last week or so, he reveals where the name Scarif originated. That's the planet where all the action happened at the end of the film, that tropical planet. And Scarif It's like a very memorable Star Wars name. I think a lot of people walked away from Rogue One being, Scarif, Tatooine, Geonosis.
Like it was always there.
Scarif.
Yeah.
It's like always there. Scarif.
Right.
So Gareth, and it's a funny story here. It's a real just all these dominoes had to fall in the right direction. But Gareth explains how the planet Scarif originally got its name.
Scarif. They're going to Scarif.
When you're a kid and you dream about making a Star Wars film, one of the amazing things that could happen if you got lucky enough to do that would be to name characters or name something in the movie. Gary Whitta was writing the draft of the movie. He was really excited about it, but then after a while, after naming like the 50th thing and trying to come up with a unique name, he was getting like a little bit bored and wanted to share this problem. And he was like, Gareth, you got to start naming some stuff. And he was like, okay, you got to name the end planet. And I was like, okay, this is a big deal. I came out and I went and got a coffee. They write your name on the coffee and everything. And I must have said when they asked my name, it's Gareth. And what they heard was Scarif. And so I just looked at the coffee cup and it said Scarif. And I just came back into Gary and I put it on the table and I went, it's called Scarif. And I feel like the barrister doesn't realize the influence they've had in a galaxy far, far away.
The barista at the Starbucks named Scarif because he misheard it's Gareth to be it's Scarif.
Right.
Wow.
The
Incredible.
barista struggling with probably a variety of things. The constant walla in a Starbucks. I just punched my microphone. Constant walla. Bad music on the PA.
Yeah.
The cash register, those Frappuccino machines. Yeah. Oh, and yeah. When they're putting the
cream,
the
cream
froth,
the
thing,
whatever it is.
What? And then here comes Gareth Edwards. He's kind of soft-spoken British guy. Yeah. I'm sure would like me to have. What? Gareth. Scarif. Scarif. Whatever.
Or scribble it on the cup.
Like, I've heard weirder names. Scarif. Off you go. Oh, look here, Scarif. Yeah. Oh, light bulb goes off as he's walking back to Gary Whitta's office.
Right.
Yeah.
Who we've interviewed here on Rebel Force Radio.
Right. I'd like next time we talk to him, we got to get his take on this.
Is it true, this barista story we heard?
Yeah. He's like,
is there a Starbucks cup somewhere with the word Scarif scribbled on it?
Yeah. First he came back and he's like, yeah, let's name the planet Frappuccino. And I'm like, no.
Not Frappuccino. It's not going to work.
Frappuccino does not sound very good.
Yeah, what about Venti? Venti, the planet Venti?
Macchiato? Maybe macchiato? Do a little macchiato? No. Scarif. It's right here on the monkey. What do you mean it's on the cup? No, nothing. I just came up with it. Scarif. It's perfect. Oh, that is great. Hey, it sounds a little like Gareth. No, it doesn't. You're hearing it.
Well, that's cool. Yeah, and certainly Rogue One just continues to gain in stature year after year after year. People are more excited about it, and I'm certainly excited about season 2 of Andor. Man, that watching that series almost seems like a dream. I need to go back and revisit these. We've talked in recent shows, Jim, about the how rapid these things come out. You don't have the time to digest them or go back and do the rewatching that we did with the films over so many decades. I know you are going through a rewatch on your own. You've been texting me as you've been binging a rewatch of Star Wars Rebels, and it's hitting you differently than it did on that initial pass.
I'm loving it. Well, there's a few things going on here. There's a sense of urgency that I feel with the series that I need to cram it in and refresh my fandom with Rebels before the Ahsoka series starts. So I have that kind of like purpose, with the whole rewatch. It's driven by a desire to have the full story in my head. Now, of course, I've seen every episode of Rebels at least 5 times, but that was back then.
Right.
And so much Star Wars was happening as we were prepping for the sequel trilogy, and Rebels was there, and we were still kind of coming off the Clone Wars. And it's just when it happened in that era, life was happening at hyper light speed,
sequel films,
hyperspace.
and it was just, everything was happening.
So I find myself rewatching with a greater appreciation. I'm almost toward the end of season 2. And I always remembered really enjoying the first 2 seasons of Rebels. And I felt like it got kind of high on its own supply in the next 2 seasons. But that was then, you know. So I'm coming at it with a different appreciation. I always felt like Ezra was a weenie. But now when I'm watching it, I'm like, no, Ezra is really pulling off some very impressive Jedi feats.
Yeah. The only thing that bothered me was that his voice sort of trails at the end of his lines.
I remember you saying that back in the day.
Kanan, I think we need to go back and help them.
I don't notice it that much on the rewatch. That has not come into play. And, but, you know, the chemistry amongst these characters and stuff, I felt like it just felt disposable to me in the wake of the Clone Wars, which I felt was truly a masterpiece in animation. And then Rebels came along, and you can tell it wasn't quite as experimental as Clone Wars. It was more straightforward, and it was not really applied to the big picture at first. It's very episodic in the first 2 seasons. But now that I'm watching it again, I'm really, really loving it. So many Star Wars fans got introduced to Star Wars via Rebels, which I couldn't really relate to.
Yeah.
But I'm almost seeing it through an entirely different perspective right now. And really liking the characters a lot more than I recall liking them, and loving the animation and loving the straightforwardness of the story.
Yes. Very linearly told.
Yeah. Well, I've told people, hey, forget everything I've ever said about Star Wars Rebels as of now, because I'm re-experiencing.
It's a reboot. It's a Jimmy Mack reboot.
Yeah. It's almost like I'm redoing my vows with Star Wars Rebels. Like, you know, this is a whole thing. So
you've reconciled.
Having a great time with it. I'm really curious to see how I react to seasons 3 and 4, because I remember back as the whole series was unfolding, I did like seasons 1 and 2 much more than seasons 3 and 4. But I think I'm much more steeped in the entire mythology of Star Wars Rebels at this point, where I'm itching to get to seasons 3 and 4. So a lot of fun, great prep work to do for Ahsoka. We've heard people say countless times, you don't have to be fully versed in Star Wars Rebels to enjoy the Ahsoka series that's coming up, but you will appreciate the story a little more if you're fully steeped in Rebels. And I didn't think I needed the refresher. I thought, whatever, we went through it. I've seen all the episodes. I know the story. But, you know, a few years removed, a different perspective. And again, the urgency of wanting to cram it in before the Ahsoka series drops, that all is leading me into this really enjoyable experience rewatching the show.
All right, what do you say we wrap things up with a little bit of Star Wars and pop culture? What do you want to hit here? Want to do the first 2?
Let's just... it was supposed to be like this most ambitious Star Wars
we got about 5 minutes to the top of the 2 hour
How about we
mark.
just... We'll come back with Star Wars and pop culture next week.
All right, you heard it here, folks.
With the full thing. And... we'll just, it'll be worth it. It'll be worth it. But yeah, we'll definitely plan on doing that next week. I think Baby Belushi might be joining us next week.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he has some very interesting stories from meeting Star Wars personalities on the convention circuit.
Oh, can't wait to hear it. Tales of the Conventions with Baby Belushi. That ought to be cool. All right. Well, very cool. All right. Well, we'll be back next week with some Star Wars and pop culture. So we'll just wrap it up. What do you say?
Chewie, get us out of here!
Fun to go through all of those highlights from Rosario Dawson's EW interview as she, too, is excited for the premiere. We're very excited for the premiere in just a couple of weeks. Excited to bring you our after shows. That's right. You do not want to miss the after shows. They are live. Call in. That's right. We do it old school, man. You call in, you pick up your phone, you call in, and you participate in the discussion. Live here on Rebel Force Radio on our YouTube channel. Just go over to youtube.com/Rebel Force Radio. Make sure you're subscribed. Make sure that you got your notifications turned on, and you will be notified when we go live. Look for that on Wednesday, starting Wednesday, August 23rd, 8 o'clock p.m. Eastern Time. Big thanks to our friends at Raycon for this week. RFR listeners can get 15% off their Raycon order at buyraycon.com/RFR. That's buyraycon.com/RFR to save 15% on your Raycon earbuds. Don't forget about RFR on Patreon. Patreon.com/Rebel Force Radio. It's a great way to support our efforts here at Rebel Force Radio. We were talking earlier in the show about being this incredible timeline, this time capsule for Star Wars fandom. And I think it's really important imagine if those early days of various fandoms and franchises were covered the way that Rebel Force Radio has done for Star Wars over the last decade and a half plus. So check it out. You can support us at Patreon. You can. There's so many benefits that you can get, various levels of support, and they all come with their own benefits. But the one thing that you get are these exclusive podcasts that you can't find anywhere else. You're not going to find them on Spotify. You're not going to find them on Apple Podcast. Only through the Patreon website when you become a member of Rebel Force Radio's Patreon supporters. It's a great community of Star Wars fans. And by the way, we were talking about those after shows. If you're a member of Patreon, you're a supporter of us here, you can get to the head of the line. Our call screener, Tyler Page, official program observer, he'll be manning his post when we kick off those after shows on August 23rd. And you want to make sure that you are getting to the head of the line. Again, YouTube, it's a great place to follow us. If you want to follow us elsewhere on social media, you can follow us on Facebook. You can follow us on X. That feels so weird to say. X, formerly known as Twitter.
I can't even log into it. Can't even log into X.
Instagram.
They switched to X and they shut us out. I said no more RFR.
No more RFR on X. We'll see what happens. Instagram. So you can still find us on Facebook. You can still find us on Instagram. We're on Threads. We haven't really posted much there, but we are accepting follows. We got a nice, healthy followership there on Threads. The email address, show@rebelforceradio.com, and the voicemail line, 708-320-1RFR. Be like EJ and send us a voicemail. We love to have the voicemails. Please, please, please send us those voicemails. They're a lot more exciting than emails. Boy, Star Wars fans love to write. Whew, they love to write the emails.
Yeah, but we're an audio podcast, so keep that in mind, you know?
Right.
We want to hear you. We don't want to hear from you. We want to hear you.
Right.
So
save your writing for Wikipedia and send us a voicemail, 708-320-1RFR, and the official website for all things and everything, Rebel Force Radio, rebelforceradio.com. But above all, if you want to support us and help us here, the best thing you can do is do exactly what you're doing right now, which is listening to Rebel Force Radio and spreading the word. So if you got those, you got that wacky cousin you only talk to when there's new Star Wars, and you haven't told them about Rebel Force Radio, tell them about RFR, tell them about the after shows. It's a great way to experience new Star Wars content like shows like Ahsoka. So please keep listening. Subscribe if you can. Leave us a review if your podcatcher of choice allows you to do so. Just one simple rule, please.
Make them good.
And we'll see you next time, and that means next week for more Rebel Force Radio. Again, counting down just a couple of weeks left until new Star Wars, Ahsoka Season 1. Can't wait. Until then, for Rebel Force Radio, I'm Jason.
I'm Jimmy Mack.
And remember,
The Force will be with you, always.
That's it. Spread that butter with the Force.